Yeehaw. Today, Farhana and I are going to talk about introversion and social anxiety. I'm very excited about this chat. It's quite a new subject to me, but such a personal one. Such a personal one. So I'm feeling quite anxious and shy to dive into this. Yeah, to explore this together with you, because I know there are so many people that are struggling with social anxiety and their quiet nature, like I did. And Farhana, can you request to join? Cool. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Yay!
Can you hear me well?
Hello, Wycoin. Very well.
Awesome. Hey, beautiful curly-haired woman.
Hello. Yes. We're gathering. The curls are gathering.
Follow us along, tribe. We're growing, eh?
I dig it. Anyway, yeah, I want to first take the time to introduce ourselves so that the one seeing, from your following seeing me and from my following seeing you know who we are. So I'm Jessica, and I've been diving into women's work and Tantra, and now trying to bring in this whole piece of introversion and social anxiety, and how Tantra and my meditative practice can support this, and how it has helped me embrace myself as an introvert, and how it helped me transmute my social anxiety and made me able to live with it instead of feeling so limited by it always. So that's what I'm going to share today, and a little bit of my research into the subject.
A little bit. A lot. We know you do a lot of research.
No,
Guys, no.
right.
Actually, I even got this little fan here. Just I'm so sensitive.
My God. If you get shy, you can hide behind it.
Yes, it's so perfect. Well, that is a beautiful introduction to your work, and I see why it culminates so beautifully. And I guess I should do a little intro of me.
Please.
My name is Farhana Sarguro, and I am also a life coach, spiritual life coach. And the reason why sensitivity or anxiety and introversion is so important to me is because I had to step into a process of discovering what it meant. And as you deep dive into what every life's opportunity explains and brings to you, it's important to factor it in and not avoid it. And so I really help my clients as well explore what they're avoiding and how their habits are showing up through these triggers, or as we like to call it, anxiety, so that we can move forward and not allow it to control us, but rather allow us to control it and see it as a power. So using anxiety has been, I guess, my superpower in stepping into this work. And had I not faced my anxiety, I don't know if I told you that, Jess, then I would not have done or started relatable content, which I am a podcaster of. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so powerful.
Actually, the day I was told that I was heavily anxious, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast right now.
It's like, that's cool. I love it.
Well, what did I miss? What did you share about?
I didn't really share anything yet. Just that I was going to speak a bit about what social anxiety and introversion are, and our personal experiences with it. I'm very excited to hear your journey, because I actually haven't heard it yet, like how you embraced it and how you've been using it, like you said now. That's so cool. I'm excited to hear more. But I'll first start with a little like explanation of what it is, because that was actually the most freeing and liberating thing for me to learn about the neurobiology of introversion, because the whole time I didn't understand why I was feeling that way, and I tried to be different. I tried to be loud and social and like confident and all of that, and I thought that were the trademarks of a successful and happy person. And I found in myself that I couldn't be that way, and then I judged that the whole time. And when I learned that it was actually my brain, that was just such a big permission for me to be like that, and to know that it wasn't something that was wrong or that I should be different. So what it basically is that if you are an introvert, your brain is more sensitive to external stimuli. Like literally, it takes you longer to process what people say to you, the visuals, the context that you're in. All of that takes longer for your brain to analyze. And also when somebody says something to you, you need to process that. Literally, the neural pathways are longer for that data to travel through. So that's why it takes you longer to come up with a reply or to respond to someone. And that is also why to go to a place where there's lots of people, where it's very loud and lots of lights and things, it can make you feel so exhausted afterwards, because it actually takes much more energy to process all of this data. And yeah, that's such an important thing to know, that it is biologically important to set boundaries and to take that space to recharge. And that's the difference between an extrovert and an introvert, that an introvert recharges by themselves when they're alone, when they're in quiet space with themselves or with a one-on-one friendship. And an extrovert actually charges when they're in a social situation with lots of people shouting, making jokes, whatever. Like, that's actually the moment when they feel alive, when they feel energized, and that like allows them to get on with their week feeling energized. And an introvert will be exhausted for days. And
kind of like now.
And this it's literally the dopamine that's important to note also, that it's the dopamine that's being released in these social situations, and introverts are more sensitive to dopamine. So the same amount of dopamine that makes an extrovert feel like, yeah, this is great, I'm feeling so happy, this is a good vibe, that amount of dopamine makes an introvert feel like, oh my God, I want to go home, because their brain is literally overstimulated by the dopamine. And the hormone that makes an introvert feel happy and excited is barely noticed by an extrovert brain. So like reading or sitting in stillness looking at the sky, like that kind of crap makes an extrovert feel like, what the fuck are we doing? This is so boring. Because it's actually not felt. It's not noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The brain actually
you process
doesn't
it, but it's tiny. It's a too small amount of stimulus for you to actually feel affected by it.
Yeah.
And this.
No, please go.
Just saying that this knowledge about neurobiology for me was such a game changer and mind-blowing, and such a permission, because that is exactly how I felt my whole life. In a social situation, I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. So many people are talking at the same time. Can we please just talk one by one? And can we also just not be here? Go home. And always
just chill in my bed.
Like, literally, please. Just having like 2 or 3 friends, and always feeling like, oh my God, I should have more friends because that's what cool people do or whatever. And then realizing, no, it's because one-on-one relationship make me feel much more happy and much more fulfilled, and that is okay, that is also because of that wiring. So
I'm
yeah,
so glad that you said
that's
that
it.
one-on-one point, because that is a huge, that came to me in my journey of understanding or unraveling what being an introvert was. And yeah, I guess we'll get into what our journey was, but understanding that one-to-one was a heavy sign for me. Like I dealt so well with talking to people when we were alone, or still do. And then when I'm around others, that feeling of, like, I can't actually like keep up with this or listening to everyone else, it almost brought me inwards. And then still battling that presence of trying to remain present while still coming in was, I guess, what we'll touch on, as well as how to use that as wisdom and not feel like you need to dissociate with the situation. And that is something that anxiety can bring up, and not the negative, not the good kind of anxiety, but the bad one where people start to, like, need to panic or walk away or like freak out, but rather just,
Overwhelmed.
yeah, just be in the present and accept it as you're an introvert. I guess a
I
good
think
thing
that's
to
such a
add.
good point.
Yeah,
What you
go for
say,
it.
that you are actually social. It's not that you're less social, you're just social in different situations. That if you are one-on-one, you can speak so well and you can make so many jokes and but it's just a different setting that allows you to be social. And I think that's important, because often we associate introversion with like social disability or inability to speak or to have conversations, but that's not the case at all. It's either in a clear setting where you're one-on-one and you're like in deep conversation, or you're like now we have like a purpose of what we're talking about. There's a clarity on where we're going, so then it's also easier to speak. But it's the all the different people and no clarity on what the conversations is about, that I think for me especially is what makes my brain hurt.
Oh, I just
But anyway.
need, what I need to add there before we move on is that just goes to show how much, when we are talking in groups or settings where we feel like this buildup of anxiety shows up, is that people in the space perhaps aren't talking with purpose. They talk out of wanting to ramble, or we talk because we all do it, and with no intention. So that space just becomes filled with noise and people competing to fill that
Exactly.
space. And that's another thing where we can actually just take more time to sit back and allow one person to speak at a time. Less anxiety will build up. And that's something I've noticed a lot, when in a good sacred space, when people speak slowly and precisely and at their opportunity to speak, it doesn't exist. So I just wanted to point out that
Beautiful.
awareness here.
Yeah, and I think that's also in the introverted nature. That's like, if you speak, you want to speak something meaningful. You've thought about what you're going to say. So what you're going to say is like valuable words. And if somebody doesn't do that, it can come across to the introvert like, why are you saying all this shit? Like, stop talking. It
Yeah, it's
doesn't
my
mean
turn.
anything.
Ah,
But I would love to hear your journey, please.
with, I think I'll touch on introversion and social anxiety or anxiety, because that I didn't think I don't, okay, I wasn't ever classified as an introvert. And my siblings, I'm a middle child, and my family and my friends always classified me as outgoing and outspoken, and leadership qualities that, will become the speaker of the family, can stand up and have a speech. I could do all of these things, yet I slowly, the more I started feeling very conscious of my spaces, which I then came to become conscious of, was sensitive about my environment, I started feeling quite introverted And I would tell people, like, please just talk slower, or like, can you bring your voice down so I could actually hear you? Or other situations that were starting to, slowly arise, that I found myself like drawing closer and closer to me, feeling like, okay, this environment isn't safe. But that's when as I started becoming conscious of that, I started becoming more closed off and towards myself. And I suddenly became depressed because I just felt like, okay, if nobody is understanding me, I'm just going to pull back and I'm going to deal with this myself. And this is just me, and then no one else around me can understand what I'm going through, and they don't know how to communicate. And all these things and experiences started showing me like, okay, now that you're feeling this depressed about it, what does it say? Like, and this is where I told you I started the podcast, because I felt like if I feel so excluded, I was obviously making myself feel excluded, and I wasn't conscious of how I am now shifting into a person that's more also conscious of the environment, and that's beautiful, and I should be embracing that and not shutting myself off away from the world. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm becoming more introverted in just my way of being soft and gentle, that people just didn't get to see a part of me. I was trying to compete with that environment, and starting that podcast was like my way of talking to people and getting to know people and talking to them about their health journey and their well-being. And that's when I started picking up like, okay, if we all have anxiety in common, there's something important or potent about what it's trying to say, and that nobody is actually special when it comes to experiencing anxiety or social anxiety. It's just what, like I was telling you, the environment is not conscious of. And that has been my journey onto stepping into spiritual coaching, which is like, okay, now this is my power. It used to be the thing that made me so depressed and I didn't want to talk to anyone. I wanted to stay in my room all day. And now I'm like, let's talk about our weaknesses.
Fucking epic.
And just to end off that journey with how that happened to me, becoming conscious of social anxiety and how that came up was, okay, stepping out into that space, and obviously being in lockdown, that allowed me to see, I really did value one-to-one spaces. It was just that, like, I liked talking to people and having conversation one-to-one. And then when I was in a group setting, I freaked out and I just wanted to leave. I went to parties, and I felt like this is clearly, we're shouting over the music, another reason why. And the environment kept saying, okay, the environment, the setting, it's how I'm responding. And then putting myself in the situations as an indication of, I'm here, and now that I'm conscious of it, how do I remain present? And constantly working on that, and to not let that environment. That's why I feel like I'm slightly extroverted, because I can be in a situation and not feel like threatened, need to leave now, or gotta never be in that position, otherwise I feel like my inner self is coming to an end. But rather being in that space and thinking, okay, what are the tools, what does it say about the situation, what are the people saying, like, focus on one conversation and just be with myself. You can also be within an environment. So that's where my anxiety flipped to social anxiety, and now to manage it, so that, because I think in this conversation is so important, because a lot of people don't actually know how powerful it is to experience it, and we feel like we need to turn to medication or some sort of stimulant that's going to support us with that. And I didn't share that part of with you, but when I was told that I was depressed and I experienced heavy anxiety, the first thing I did was start the podcast and say, I'll never take medication for something like this. And that was honestly, like, that was the most empowering decision I'd made for my life. And that's why I use it today, and why I love to talk about this conversation, because I know if I can do it, anyone else can. So yeah, that was my little story. What is it like for you,
Oh
and
my goodness.
where are you now?
Just taking it in. That's
Mm,
fucking powerful.
yeah,
Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah, definitely.
I love that you were so set on that, so clear, like, fuck no, I'm not going to take medication for this. And that
Mm,
that actually sparked the whole journey.
yeah, relatable
Trusting
content.
that there's more. Yeah, that's incredible. And
I
that you
mean,
took the inquiries about certain contexts that make you feel uncomfortable and some that make you feel comfortable, and what is it about those situations, and how can I translate that into a meaningful offering like a podcast. That's
yes,
incredible.
yeah. You're such a great listener. Thank you for summarizing
Yeah,
that.
could listen to you all day.
Yeah, that's,
Very, very
but
nice.
I just, as you responded there, I just came to think about how when we experience something, we are to really listen to it and take that
Mm.
in our own time and not need to rely on other people to, you know, tell us what to do. We have the answers, and if that can be even just that message from my side of my journey is you can trust yourself and trust what your body is trying to tell you, especially when it comes to this conversation and
Mm.
anything. Yeah.
Preach. Very good. That's amazing. You basically summarized my whole story. I don't know if I have to say so.
Well, I met you when I met you in person. We had a conversation, and I didn't experience firstly any feeling of anxiety come up for myself, or did I get that impression that you were an anxious person? And I think that's because we related, or how did you
I do think that as
resonate?
an introvert, you have almost like a sixth sense that you can feel other introverts. You're like, we're vibing. I get you. And then I instantly feel comfortable. And that's for me such a clear example that if I feel comfortable, I am also a social person. And I love to make jokes, and I love to chat, and I love to have deep conversations and things like that. But it's so dependent on whether I feel comfortable or not, or whether I feel I can trust this person. And that is linked to that, what you said about that wisdom that's actually in your anxiety, that you don't have to see it as a limitation, but as a almost like a very sensitive radar that can check for you. Is this actually a safe space for me? Do I want to be here? And that was such a big piece for me, that I realized that there's like valuable wisdom in my anxiety, instead of feeling like, ugh, again, I don't like to hang out with this person, or oh, I don't like to do this, I'm so difficult, or why can't I get along with these people. Then it was actually one of my best friends who said, you have to stop thinking that your intuition is bad, or that it is not true. What you are feeling is just a very, very sensitive bullshit radar that you can use. And it doesn't mean that everybody
Tea. There's some tea for you.
um, that that you can listen to that it's not a curse, that you're very sensitive to and picky with who you want to hang out with, who you want to connect with, which places you want to go. But I fast forwarded a bit. I think it is valuable to go a bit back in time and share about how I wanted, like I said actually in the beginning already, I wanted to be extroverted and I wanted to be social and all of that. And then trying to be that and forcing myself to be that made me actually so incredibly stressed that at one point I became so anxious that it sort of flipped and completely disabled me to even do anything social, because I also became very depressed and intensely socially anxious, that I was so paranoid of other people and them watching me, them judging me, them like I wouldn't even want to leave the house because I felt like there was literally every single person was watching me, and the social situations felt so threatening because I felt so scared of people. And it was only, actually similar to your story, that then I also got prescribed antidepressants. I never took them. I still have that packet as a sort of trophy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I was like, this is not right. And then I also started getting more into healing and started with the yoga journey, and I noticed so clearly that there's a clear shift in, if I focus on the external world, I feel very anxious, and if I focus on myself, I feel less anxious. And that it was the sort of obsessive focus on the external world that made me so incredibly anxious. But when I learned to focus on myself and be in my body and feel myself, is that I could be much more calm in the world and actually enjoy social situations, because I felt grounded and safe in myself. And learning about introversion and the qualities of it sort of enhanced this. That I was like, okay, this is actually very in resonance with me, so it is perfectly fine for me to be more quiet, or to be more sensitive, or to not enjoy this kind of situations. And this got very much tested when I started dating Jay, who is the biggest extrovert you've ever met in your life. And and that triggered for me this deep sense of, oh fuck, he is like the perfect model citizen who is like so outgoing and charming and humorous and all of that. And then I sat there next to him like, hi, and I don't have anything to say, but I'll just sit here. And it triggered that part of me that is like, fuck, I'm so useless. Nobody likes me, blah, blah, blah. Like all of that got triggered in comparison to Jay, because a part of me, which is very socially learned, a part of me believes that the extrovert loud person is a more like celebrated human being, that is a more successful person. And that is what we were taught the whole time. What we are taught, that those are like the popular people, or the successful politicians or business people, or whatever, like the charming ones that can lead a crowd and make everybody laugh. Like that's the celebrated personality traits. And then if you don't have them, or like I noticed I didn't have them, I felt like, oh God, there's something wrong with me. And that was a huge learning of, oh wait, there is nothing wrong with me. It's in my brain, and I actually have different qualities. And it was weird because so many people already told me this, but I had to figure it out for myself. Like I heard so often, like, but I love chatting to you because you make me feel calm, and it's so nice to have deep conversations, and you have such a nice presence, and like all of these compliments that I couldn't take, because I was like, yeah, but I'm not like loud and social and funny, so you're lying that I am actually a nice person to be around.
Yeah.
And it really had to come from the inside out, that I realized, well, there is something to this. There is some value in this. And not to start competing with like, I'm better than the extroverts, but like we are just wired differently. We have different qualities that manifest in different ways, that have their own value. And that balance is needed. Imagine you had a world full of introverts or a world full of extroverts, like both would suck. So it's perfect to have that balance. And the embrace or the acceptance of my introverted nature relieved all the anxiety I used to feel. And that, I think, is an important difference between social anxiety and introversion, that you can become very anxious about the fact that you're introverted, but you are not accepting that,
That's
which
a
is
huge
exactly what
one.
happened to me.
Yeah, I'm so
And if you
grateful.
actually accept that, then you can so comfortably be an introvert. Because an introvert is not anxious. An introvert is like, oh, this is me. I love one-on-one conversations. I love reading a book. I love petting my cat and chilling with my cat. um, you know?
Yeah.
And that was a big one for me to realize, oh, you can be happy as an introvert. It's not something bad.
I feel like you hit the nail on the head there, Jess, where you said that you finally accepted. And that was the word that I like immediately got turned on to hear more about, because acceptance is, like you said, we're not in society, we're taught to look at the people who stand out, and often we don't look at who's behind the scenes, and those are also archetypes or characteristics or personalities that we all inhibit. And I think Carl Jung even said that introversion is a personality type, and so we I think as society we're starting to pick up on personalities that shine and are not in competition, and the more we can pick up on those things, the I think we can attribute to the more we accept ourselves. And when you accepted yourself as being this person, and myself too, there was almost this ability to be proud of being the people that society deemed as, boring. Look at that girlfriend that's just chilling on the side, And you were explaining these things to me, and as you were saying it, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally judged at one point, or I totally was this person at another point, and I totally felt bad. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people do still feel that way, and they think like it's a bad thing to be an old lady that chills at home. Like it's all these terms that also that we've been given as people that like to be within an introvert, but at the same time it could also be a threat to the people who aren't, because they're not used to that timid side, or that side that really does the deep work. And lately I've found, even just meeting you, connecting with others, that the more we talk on a deeper level, the more I notice perhaps they are more introverts that can think this way, or are this way, because they deep dive into who they are. And the more, if we can share that people do it, the more we can see that there's more to accept in this world, and not to shame anxiety, and not to put anxiety as a blame on something that they need to fix, and rather to work through and discover more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
I just want to add though that I feel like this conversation is also so prime and important as we are talking about mental health and well-being. And I know we touched on it lightly, but people all over the world are like anxious, or sitting in their rooms and alone, and feeling like, what do I do? And it's really a time in our lives to embrace this awareness of anxiety, and take it as an opportunity to self-heal and explore yourself, and take the time to go within and be sensitive, just like we're talking about it. It's totally beautiful, and if it resonates, then, and if you need someone to talk to, we're here. There are people in the world that aren't telling you to run away, but rather embrace.
Yeah, I think that's nice to also mention about the wisdom that's actually in anxiety, and how that has changed things for me also, where before, when I felt anxious, I was like, oh God, no, there we go. Now I'm going to be spiraling in a black hole of depression and anxiety. And
Got my hoodie on, like chilling like this,
no, fuck it. This is me now. But instead being like, I know now that when I feel anxious, there is a call, there is a little signal that is worth listening to. that it's not something to get rid of or be like, I hate anxiety, I don't want to feel like this, but be like, maybe there is something to hear for me when I actually approach this piece with patience and with compassion instead of forcing it and pushing it away, and to realize that it is like a child, you know, that is your inner child. And that was such a mind-blowing realization for me, that when I feel anxious, it's my inner child, like my girl self, that's like, are we actually really safe here? And that there is value in her worries, and that there might be something for me to hear, and that I can comfort her if I know that it's safe. That I know now it is actually safe to show up online, or to be visible, or to walk on the street, like little things that as a kid didn't feel safe because of experiences, because of things that little girl went through that were not life-threatening, but very, very threatening and very scary, like on a primal level. So it makes sense that those things get triggered now when I am in the same situation. So that created so much compassion for the anxiety I feel. Like, I know it's scary, but I'm here now with you, and we're doing this together. I'm taking you with me as we continue. And at the same time listening, like, is there maybe something that I can do differently? Like, for example, I realized that I get very anxious when I don't have any structure in my life. And I try to be like flowy feminine. I'm going to just intuitively fill my days. And then I felt so anxious, like, no, I actually don't want to. I actually want to have fucking time blocks, and I want to have a calendar ready. And that was sort of finding the balance of, where can I accept that something makes me feel unsafe and accommodate for that part, knowing that it is this anxiety, this child part in me that is based on real life experiences. And how can I make her feel safe by making a schedule, by making a content calendar, by knowing clear what the plan is of the evening, and things like that. Like, that make me feel safe, because then that little girl is like, okay, she's got me, she knows what we're gonna do, and you know. And it was so liberating for me to realize, okay, I can facilitate safety for this inner child, instead of kicking it and being like, don't fucking be here, I don't want to be anxious, you know. Because that's how I approached my anxiety. I was so angry with it. I was like, ugh, I hate being anxious, it fucks up my life, and you know. And then you're literally like kicking a child. Like, that was such a hectic realization for me, but it was what I was doing. Instead of taking it on my lap like this crying child, you know, what are you going to do with a scared child? You're gonna take it on your lap, and you're going to soothe it, and you're going to find ways to make her feel safe again.
You're so good at that. Thank you for sharing just the way you process that, and share the journey of how you can look after your inner child and just after yourself is so valuable, Jess. Like, I think when I just listen to you, I just want to say, keep talking, because that feeling of feeling safe is already there, and it's created, and you have that power to do that. And I guess I want to ask you from that, why do you think you were able to do that, and why do you think we are able to create that understanding and approach to managing or living with anxiety or introversion, and others aren't?
Why? I think actually just hearing about this and realizing the truth of it. I think it was through my Tantra training that I learned about reparenting and the childhood traumas that live in your body, and they get triggered by specific contexts and situations, and how you can meet those triggers and transmute them or embrace them. So I think it's just hearing about it and experiencing these kind of practices or perspectives. Because once you realize this, you cannot unknow it. So then it just keeps integrating more and more into your life. And it is a practice. It still triggers me when I get anxious, but quicker and quicker am I able to be like, okay, I'm bigger than this. I can meet this anxiety. I can listen to this anxiety. I can process this. So it's experience, yeah.
That is exactly it. You process it and you live through it, and avoidance is something that you chose to confront as an opportunity to live with it and embrace it. So I think that from our conversation is or the work that we're doing is a reminder of, there's no getting out, or there's no suppressing. It's constantly facing it and putting yourself in challenges or experiences to see how much you adapt to the situation. And yeah, when you're saying that, it reminds me of every time I go out into a public space and I just have to remind myself, literally, that's what I do. I'm a great person. Like, the situation is not going to trigger me. If it does, something that I can learn about, and then I walk in, because that is the only way I know that the space that I'm walking into, the environment that I wish to put myself into, was chosen, and therefore whatever is shown back is a reflection or the experience that I need to then take on next and leave with. So it's time
Okay.
we keep facing the situations as well. And I think perhaps a spanner in the works for socially anxious people, because it's like, at the same time, we can choose to avoid it, but we can also choose to go into it and then go out and be like, fuck, I'm never doing that again, and this is what I learned. It's like a pleasure to actually learn in those moments. Yeah.
And it becomes fun once you know how to hold yourself, how to meet yourself, how to work with this. Because if you're overwhelmed, then it's no fun. But once you are able to hold your anxiety, then you can like start playing and bring yourself in scary situations, And then it actually becomes fun. You can take control back over your life instead of letting it control your life, which is what you said in the beginning. Yeah. I think that is just a beautiful pathway into introducing our workshop for next week.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So next week, Wednesday evening, Fran and I are going to host a workshop exactly about this, about how to meet your anxiety, how to listen to it, how to transmute it, how to embrace your introverted nature, just to have like a dedicated space and time to dive into this together. And it's going to be on Zoom, so it's nice and private. Everybody can be in their own safe space, because we thought, if we're going to do this live, there's not going to be many people showing up, because they're all introverted.
And not live on Instagram, because that's still the power of sitting behind your phone. And even still on Instagram, people are like, oh, they're going to see me online. But just being in person and talking about a conversation that is like, this is about my most inner hardworking truth. How am I going to cope? Like you can see this process of going into a shell, and we really want to create that safe space where everyone in the space resonates with some sort of anxiety or social anxiety, and wants to just meet that subconscious level of what's showing up here, what's it telling me, and how to move forward with it, so that we can all be having this kind of conversation.
Yeah,
Perhaps
beautiful.
destigmatizing anxious or anxiety as a negative thing. So
Yes. Reprogramming how we respond to anxiety and how we perceive it, and realizing it's actually beautiful and very intelligent. And that being an introverted is equally beautiful and intelligent. I'm just going to check if there are people responding. If anybody has any questions,
Yeah.
How do I
The workshop is on, you can send us a DM or book on relatable content, which is, I'll have the link on my bio as well. And I guess you'll put it there too,
Oh yeah.
Jess.
Yeah, I'll put it also in my bio. So it's next week. I'm having issues scrolling here. Yeah. I'll just stop. Are you at the bottom of the conversation?
Yes, but you want me to scroll up and see what people have said?
Okay. I was somewhere stuck in the top. But if anybody has any questions, please write them now. And
Linda did
yeah,
say
or
something.
anything you can. Oh,
Linda said, I still have all the meds, never took them. Wow.
wow, same.
Someone said, you go, girl, Mishka. I just want to say your videos make my day.
Yay.
And some people laughing at some funny things that you make because you really are a funny person. She's Ella says, hello, beautiful ladies. Thank you for organizing the live. I'm looking forward to listen to your insight about this topic. Well, if you stuck around till the end, like, do join us at our workshop next week if you want to use it, empower ourselves more. Yeah, I think that's all.
I see here from Mia, how can you release long-standing trauma that shows up in anxiety? So yeah, we will dive into that in depth in the workshop. But I think how it works is to, every time it comes up, make conscious space to meet it. So every time your anxiety comes up, can you make space to breathe with it, to journal with it, to communicate with it, and let your body process it. So to move or to sound or to shake, like a beautiful way to process anxieties by trembling and shaking and like jumping around, like having a very primal animalistic processing of stress that is stored in your body. So and it's like a big piece of anxiety that you can break down piece by piece, that is a long, that spans over a long amount of time. So don't expect it to be processed at once.
Yeah, I want
It's
to add
important
to
to
that as
also.
well, because if you are willing, if it keeps showing up in your body, it's not, your body is using time to be compassionate with the trauma that it has given you. And so just, if you can be gentle on whatever amount of time that it takes, it will take. It's not a rush. It's not a process that you're going to skip through. So as long as we are conscious of making a stride towards releasing it, it will take its time, and whatever its time it's meant to take.
Yeah, yeah. Think of it as something, yeah, like a child, that needs care and compassion, little bits every time. And if you would process it too fast, you would re-traumatize your nervous system, and so it needs to adjust to the new level of openness. Cool. All right. That
Thanks,
was
Andrew.
a really cool combo.
Yeah. Thank you for being so real and for sharing so much light on this conversation, and for sharing that post, the power of sharing something online when we think, what are people going to say? What are people looking at me? When this conversation started by you sharing a topic on introversion, and then it hit me like, oh shit, I'm actually an introvert. And then this conversation went, and here we are, ready to bring it to life
Yep.
and
Yeah.
embrace it.
So epic. So epic. It's beautiful. Yay. Okay. Well, bye.
Okay, thanks
Bye.
for joining us. We'll see you next time. And Zitron said she'll try and be at the workshop. Sorry, I'm
Yay.
not sure. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. And if you've just joined us, we'll share this video on our
Yes.
stories. And always send us a message. We like to be supportive of people who we relate to or want to relate or whatever it is. You're never alone.
Yeah. You're never alone. Join the club. You're part of a club now. Yeah.
Hoods up.
Okay. The introvert club. Cool. Okay. Bye, babe. I'll speak to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Mwah. Beautiful evening.